Hi, my name is Mark McKelvie, and I work at Woodbine Entertainment as a manager of communications and an on-air broadcaster. A typical workday as a broadcaster at Woodbine and Mohawk racetracks usually starts with getting prepared for that day's races or that evening's races. There's usually an on-air show that happens about 30 minutes prior to post time, previewing that night's races. So you'll prep a lot to look at some of the storylines, some of the key races, some of the key participants for that night. And then when the races get going, the broadcast consists of not only showing the races, but commentary in between. And as a broadcaster, your role usually switches back and forth between teeing up the race and then getting reaction post-race. And a lot of the times you'll be in the winner's circle to interview the winning connections, ask them how the race went. And usually that's the best place at the racetrack to be, to see them after they've won. As well, we'll do some pre-race interviews at times and tee up the race by getting some inside information from the trainers, from the drivers, from the jockeys, just to provide a little more information to those that are watching. Certainly, you have to have some pretty strong social skills in this role. Not everybody is going to feel comfortable in front of a camera during an interview. So a lot of the times you have to try and bring their personality out, even if maybe they're a little shy or a little uncomfortable in front of the camera. Again, just being able to communicate very well and clear is very important to be successful at this job. You're talking not only to the person that you're interviewing, but everybody at home. You want to be clear and concise and make sure everyone can follow along. But number one, it certainly goes back to just having that strong personality and good social skills to be able to conduct good interviews. Certainly, one of the biggest challenges could be the fact that, as I mentioned, not everybody is comfortable in front of the camera. So a lot of the times you'll go into an interview and you can tell right away someone's comfort level, and you might need to ask them a question just to kind of bring them out of their shell, something maybe not related to the main topic, something just to get them going. That being said, a lot of the times there will be people that aren't comfortable and you might not be able to get them to that level. So you need to be prepared with several questions in the back of your head. Usually you can go into an interview with maybe 3 questions. Usually you try to keep those interviews, at least post-race, we try to keep them to about 2-3 minutes. If you have someone who's a great talker, you might only have to ask 2 of those questions and you'll get through that whole time. Others, you might not be getting so much and you want to drag a little more out of them. So you need to have several questions you could go to, not just your main questions of how does it feel or what led to that win on that day. So that can be one of the biggest challenges, as well, being prepared and knowing all of the competitors, all the participants, whether that's the horses, knowing those that are training those horses, those that are going to either be riding them or driving them, having that sort of background knowledge. It can be a challenge when, if you think in the middle of the summer, we're racing 5 days a week, and at times I'll bounce back between the thoroughbreds and the standardbreds. So it's a lot going on. You have to do your homework and you need to make sure that you're up to date because you are on camera, you are broadcasting, and what is important is to make sure that your information is correct and you want to do an accurate job. I very much grew up loving to watch sports on television or listening on radio. I was a big fan of various commentators, and I also had a love for horse racing. So ultimately, I was lucky that I was able to bring together a few of my passions. I went to school for broadcasting, focused on journalism, and out of there, opportunities presented itself to get involved in the racing industry on a full-time basis, and being able to use those skills that I had learned. That was just a dream come true. But it goes back to, I think, just being a youngster who just had a fascination for the whole production and how everything came together to present a sport, whether that be hockey, baseball, football, and ultimately racing was one that really caught my eye. One of the first pieces of advice I would give anyone who comes into the industry and wants to be involved in something like broadcasting is to be open-minded and to put yourself out there. In a position like the position that I'm in as a broadcaster, you can't be afraid to go up to people and start talking to them and just try to find out a little bit more information. The more you know, the more knowledgeable you're going to sound. on air, but you can't be afraid to take yourself out of that comfort zone. It is really scary. I was there in that position when I started, and you're nervous, your hands start shaking, your voice maybe starts to crack, but ultimately, the more you do it, the more you put yourself out there, it just becomes second nature. So you can't be afraid to take those chances and to get to know people, because a lot of the times the people you're talking about or the people you're interviewing, they want you to know what you're talking about. If you know what you're talking about, it's going to make them a lot more comfortable. It makes everybody, from yourself to the person you're interviewing, everybody looks good when you're prepared. So just getting out there, making those connections, being comfortable, and learning as much as you can, I would say that's number one. I think being part of just a whole production, being one piece of something that can go flawlessly at the end of the night, that's usually very satisfying on those big race days, whether that be some of our biggest races, but even days that are just your everyday races. When things go smoothly, it's very satisfying. When you had some good interviews, when your commentary, you could tell was spot on. It's a good feeling at the end of the broadcast to know that everything went really well. A lot of the times too, it's when you get to tell really good stories. That's probably one of the most satisfying parts, is when somebody has won a big race or they've overcome an obstacle or a challenge to get to that spot, and you get to be part of the team that tells that story. That's really neat, because you never know where those are going to reach, and the kind of feedback you usually get is very positive, and that's really nice to hear. I hope that offers a glimpse into my world and into the broadcast world of horse racing. It's an exciting game in all facets, and this is just one small part of it. And I'm pretty proud to be a part of that this industry, and to be a part of the side that gets to tell and share the stories of this great sport. So I wish you nothing but the best with your future endeavors into the equine industry, and nothing but the best going forward.